Good morning. Spring is supposed to be coming one of these days. It's going to go up to 54, I think, tomorrow. Sure isn't there yet, so that's why I'm all bundled up. That last video I made, I saw I was dancing around so much. It was because it was cold. No cat here today so far. I do hear some pigeons cooing. You might. If I would get quiet, you might be able to hear them. Anyway, on we go. This is the 100th day, first video. And we're going to start foreign language today. But a couple things to say about my last video. There's a movie called Thief of Bagdad, or The Thief of Bagdad. It was made about 1940. I think it's very good. I used to be very pleased to have it available. And when I would talk about Scheherazade and the Arabian Nights, I would show them a clip of that. Even though it's such an old movie with the special effects being so different, I thought it was very good. I would show the part where the genie came out of the bottle and Aladdin flew hanging onto the genie's hair, and others. I wanted to mention that. And another thing I didn't tell you is that the version that I now use, I copied it from television, called Arabian Nights, I think is the name of it, made in 2000. They did something so clever, I thought, at one point. If you remember the frame story, Scheherazade kept herself alive for 1,001 nights by interrupting her stories and finishing them later. And in that, they go in and out of that frame story as she tells her various stories. I highly recommend this. But it was made for television, and it was broadcast two nights, Wednesday night and Thursday night from 9 o'clock to 11, I think. Anyway, at the end of the first night, they're in the frame, and the Sultan is commanding her to tell the rest of the story, and she says, "Wait till tomorrow night." And that's exactly what the viewing audience all had to do, because it was 11 o'clock, and everyone watching that on television had to wait till tomorrow night, just like the Sultan had to. Okay, now, going on, foreign language. I'm going to start. Now you're going to hear the wind blowing. Anyway, I'm going to go in this order. I'm going to start teaching you Spanish today, just a tiny bit of Spanish, then a little bit of French. I'm going to say maybe 10 days each, maybe 15. I would tell the kids 3 weeks, maybe 2, and I'm not only going to do it, I'll mix other stuff in. Then I'll turn to French for, let's say, 10 days. Then I'll turn to German for 10 days. That's new. I didn't usually do that, but in the public school, but I will today. Then I think I'm going to try teaching English in German. I'm thinking about doing this. That'll be such a strange experience. I've never done that before. I never could do it before, but I think I'm going to try. Then and this will all be done in a similar way. Then I'll briefly teach some Latin, and I'll very briefly teach some Greek. Now, why I did this in all those years that I taught is because Spanish, French, and Latin, those were the three choices that the students had going into 9th grade. They could choose, are they going to study a foreign language at all? They didn't have to. And if they were going to, they basically had to choose one of them. Sadly, it was very difficult for them to choose two. So they basically had to choose one. And so my approach was, let them know what they're getting in for. Give them a taste. Let me show them what is Spanish like, what's French like, what's Latin like. And that's basically why I'm going to do what I'm going to do here. To do this, for the first 4, I'm going to use a parallel text. Now you would see that back in the linguistics section of your notes, page 8 point something. I discussed the parallel text. Well, the parallel text is going to be a very silly conversation. It's parallel because it's going to be the same silly little conversation with slight changes. Will be in Spanish, and then in French, and then in German, and then in English. It really is a silly, impossible conversation, but it's useful to me. My approach is going to be very much oriented toward word frequency. I do not understand why that is not used more than I know of in the teaching of foreign languages. Certain words are so much more useful to know in any language than other words. And what I'm going to try to do, or have tried to do, is put as the very frequently occurring words in this silly little conversation. I had heard once, and I believe that it's more or less true, that 100 words in English make up 50% of spoken English. When I first saw that, and that sank in, I thought, wow, you mean if you learn 100 words, you're halfway there in terms of frequency of the words you hear? And I guess it's true, more or less. I think 1,000 words make up 90% of the language. Well, but back to the 100. It's very reasonable to think that you could learn 100 new words in 3 weeks. Well, I'm going to aim at about 80. So in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll show you about 70, maybe probably not 80 Spanish words. And that should put you in a position where you're on your way. Then I'll do it for French, I'll do it for German, and I'll do it for English. Latin and Greek I will approach differently. All right, you will hear me often refer to the grammar or the morphology section of this class in these notes. If you've been taking the class right along, then you have a set of notes. And I devoted most of November and December to morphology, grammar. I will refer to that often. I did that to get you ready to study a foreign language. Linguistics, I will refer to it as well. It's the 8th section, page 8 point something, and I will refer back to linguistics. I did not want to try to teach a foreign language if you had not already heard of such words as case, the parts of speech, agreement, and things like number. Now, if you do not have a set of notes, I want to remind you that there is a website, humanitynotes.webs.com. It is not identical to what I've given this year. Every year it's slightly different, but this is a very complete set of notes. All right, I have one more video for today.